talking of money bags, Mr. Moneybags. Jirongo had all, money stashed in different places of this country, even overseas at the end of the day. So was this a case of self-preservation at the end of the day, knowing that, maybe, since you are also mentioning the clammy fingers of corruption around him as well, that the government will come after the money? Just briefly, each one of you can actually comment on this, and how also has this really steamrolled the festering wound of corruption in this country, that we've not been able to stanch this particular flaw until now? Just briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Diba. For me, as I'm now talking as a young person, because Jirongo is, I think, died at 66, if I'm not wrong. And all this money bag we are talking about were more than 30 years ago, or just 30 years ago. This means this was fairly a young man by the time all these were happening. But as a young person who came way behind, are these the kind of people we are supposed to follow and their footsteps? Because if we don't talk about them candidly and say, this is not what we need this country to have in leadership, then who will say and how will we change? So personally, I know this is not going to be very popular, but I don't think Jirongo represented what this country needed as a leader. Much as we might sugarcoat and call it generosity and what, we can call it all the names we want to call it. But I think this was not the perfect example. Because up to now, I started by saying, and even in the panel, people who might have lived as adults in his time, no one is talking about Jirongo in parliament and anything that, like, coming out conspicuously that this was a real leader, this was a change he made. No one has talked about Jirongo as a cabinet minister. Everybody keeps talking about him dishing out money left, right, and center. Then we finalize it by sugarcoating it and calling it he was generous. People who have interacted with him personally confirms that he was generous. Is that what the country needs? Thank you.
All right.
I think in shortly, I cannot say I am a fan of Cyrus Jirongo and the legacy of corruption that he is seriously associated with. When you read his history, a lot of newspapers, they did a very good job about him. He appears to be one of this category of people who have made it in Kenya. When you use the word hustler, before it was introduced in Kenya, you would actually have used it on the early life of Jirongo. I used to have, when I was at Kamaukuri and Kiraito Advocates, somebody who knew Jirongo when he was doing the land deals in the late 1980s. I think that gentleman was called, whether Joshua or something. Now, that Jirongo that we know, you see a young man, very enterprising, who got close to Mwangale and was able to make some money for himself. And later on, when Kanu was threatened, with power, he was being a well-known organizer. He was recruited to do a job, a hatchet job, if we may call it so. And he appears to have done it very well. And he assisted Kanu to retain power. Because when you read Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince, then you would see that aspect of rare politics, that you see a bit of it in Jirongo. I don't know whether from the perspective of Niccolo Machiavelli, Jirongo would be necessarily a villain. He's a villain to a lot of us, probably, from a moralist point of view. But as a power player, you are not sure that that is what you would pass for. We leave it to his friends and his families. It's a sensitive moment. I will not to say he was a bad man, but he has a complicated legacy in our country. But you also acknowledge, because you see, we have always said that nobody makes himself a billion or gets himself into higher stature by being a fool. At least we know he was not a fool, and he had made some genuine money before he started getting into all this money of NSSF, the big land deals that were associated with a regime, and he was a cog in the wheel in that regime. So that's all I want to say, because we are yet to bury Jirongo. A complicated history, the Machiavellian historian, he talked about historians.
Yes.
They will tell us about him.
All right, but you know, they normally say it doesn't matter how you started, isn't it? It really matters how you end. So a good name also is better than rubies. Yeah? Maybe
As I said, I leave the definition of Jirongo's legacy to historians. And historians will tell us, and I'm hoping to read, you know, both sides, and so that we make a conclusion, knowing that my professor in history in first year of the university, a Sierra Leone called Maurice Sire, told me that, taught us that history is written according to the time and the place of the historian. Mm-hmm. So even as we hear people speaking about, you know, Cyrus Jirongo, we need to ask ourselves that from what position and time are they speaking about Cyrus Jirongo. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that we will have people who can speak from all sides and can speak from, you know, all times, mm-hmm. On the way they knew the man. But as we do that, I think you raise the issue of bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. In my view, without you know, passing judgment mm-hmm. on the man, because we need to let the family and friends mourn him, I would want to say that Jirongo was, his life has just proved that he was human. Despite the greatness, he struggled in courts, finally came out and declared bankruptcy. And that just shows that, you know, it does not matter how high you go, it is possible to collapse. But even when that happened, he did not go into depression, you know, and commit suicide the way we see others doing. Rather, he continues living his life with vive and with, you know, you know, continuing to engage. And that is something about that person. And I'm hoping that historians will define that man. Thank you.
Indeed, yes, quite a vivacious personality, a rollish personality that he was, Cyrus Jirongo. We continue to mourn and, of course, commiserate with the family, our deepest sympathy and sincere condolences as well. As a nation, we mourn one of the leaders that was very iconic also in shaping the political landscape in this country. Of course, as human beings, we all have our own frailties, our foibles, and, of course, shortcomings as well. And that is just being human, just as Joshua is saying. Maybe just to turn the crack from that gloomy note that we've been discussing, and this is will be an ongoing story as well.